The year is 1912. A rare book stealer named Wilfred Voynich had worked his way through a long and fascinating career that culminated in an invitation to purchase 15th century manuscripts in Italy. So he goes all the way to Italy, he's digging through a pile, and he sees one that looks funny. And in this case, I mean funny as in very head-scratchingly funny. It's over 200 pages, written in a language he does not recognize. It's filled with images of botanicals and plants, astrological and celestial items, and he doesn't recognize any of this, even the plants. And women in baths, pages upon pages of women in baths. So of course, he brings it home, and soon it will be known to the world as the Voynich manuscript. Now, throughout the decades, cryptologists, historians, linguists, everybody would take a look at this strange book. And people even thought it might even be a hoax by Voynich himself until it was carbon dated, and indeed found out to be from the early 15th century, around 1408 to 1438. This is 600 years old, and to this day, the language, who created it, and why, it is still a mystery. Now, would you believe, the Voynich manuscript is in Connecticut. It's at the Yale Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, right in New Haven. Now, if that is too far for you to travel to go see it, they have digitized the entire thing so that you can look at all the images online. Those are some of the images that you just saw. Now, they also have a facsimile, a copy that took specialists years to recreate, down to the size and shape, dirt marks, tiny holes. It's often called the world's most mysterious manuscript, or the world's most mysterious book. Now, if you were like me and did not know the difference between a book or a manuscript, do not go in there and ask to see the real thing. They're not going to let you see it. But I did get to see the facsimile, and it was stunning. Now, like everybody who sees this strange book, I have a hypothesis. But in order for you to understand how I might possibly arrive at that hypothesis, you first need to understand a little bit about my backstory. You see, I wanted to see it so bad because I love connecting with history in that way. My mother's English, and as a child and a teen, we would tour ruined castles in England and Wales. And it would be just us, well, and lots of sheep, of course. That was a highlight of me as a child. Nobody wisely told me what was going to happen to those sheep. But it was so quiet over the moors, though, that on a gray, gloomy day, you could still hear the feasts going on in those great hall ruins. And I remember as a child, it haunted me a little bit. I wanted to know, who were these people and what were they like? So we fast forward to 2007, where I've been working in tech. Now, even as late as 2007, there were still not a lot of women in the tech field, and even fewer women were blogging about tech, which I was also doing. So when I was pregnant with my daughter, occasionally I would take a break from writing about tech, and instead I would also write about what I was feeling and experiencing throughout that pregnancy. Because of that, when she was born, readers felt very connected to her. Now, as you know, in the tech world, you snooze, you lose, and a new mom cannot be out of the game for very long, right? Now, I was so lucky to have an amazing support system, but still, I really struggled as a mom and trying to work. I was still going to conferences, big ones, like 8,000 person conferences, and I was also trying to juggle being a mom there too. Here's one of the pictures of all of us tech bloggers on the stage at one of these large conferences. So we're going to play the working mom's version of Where's Waldo for a second. I'm going to zoom in so you can find us. And when I say us, yes, that's my daughter. I pulled this stunt for years. Okay. If she was going to be with me, right, while I was either at home or away at a conference, I wanted her to know that I loved what I did, that I thought it was important, and that I was showing up for it. Right? I wanted her to know that I was trying my best to do a good job that I loved. And then what happened in 2020, of course? COVID. So now all of a sudden, everybody's home with their spouses and their children, 24 hours a day, also home. Coincidentally, I started to go for long walks at that time. And as I walked, I would listen to podcasts, and that is how I heard about the Voynich manuscript. Now, even at this point, the paranormal podcasts are getting involved. They all think it's aliens. But I remember as I was walking and I was thinking, trying to connect in that way, what if we are not so different from these people that lived 600 years ago? Right, there were certainly outbreaks of plague all throughout that century. There were women authors and women scribes as well. So if I was on a medieval lockdown, I was a scribe with an impending deadline and my whole family was around, that's when I might say, okay, we need a big project. We are going to make some cowhide vellum parchment. You're laughing, but you know you did the exact same thing with sourdough, right? It's a very intense process. Maybe they thought the cows weren't going to make it. I don't know. And then after that, I would say, okay, well, you're home while I'm working, so I'm going to show you what I do. Okay? The Renaissance was just getting started, right? These kids were going to grow up and do amazing things. So get drawing. And they would draw. So where's the one place a mom can get no privacy? The bath, right? Is there any big surprise that your kids are going to draw you in there over and over and over again? I mean, sometimes we don't even go there because we need to use it. We just need to go in there because we're trying to have a snack in peace. And what about that crazy writing? Well, here's where you take a page from the TikTok medieval parenting hacks, and you gather up all the kids and you give them some manuscript pages, and you say, invent me a language I will never be able to figure out. And they'll do it too. If you give a kid a job, they are very smart. They're also very, very good at losing things. So perhaps they had the key written somewhere and it got kicked under the medieval couch. Mom never saw it. And when they present it to you and it's all done, and they hand it to you, what do we say? We say, oh, I love this. I am going to keep it forever. And we mean that, right? Of course we mean it. We love their artwork. But at the same time, you can't get rid of it while they're home watching you. So it hangs around for centuries, just long enough for Wilfrid Voynich to dig it out of a dusty old pile of manuscripts in Italy in 1912. Now, another reason that we might have realized that a woman was behind its creation was that it was also uncredited. I'm just going to throw that out there. Perhaps that seems to be the same behavior no matter what century we're in, right, unfortunately. Okay, so perhaps my little hypothesis has more holes than Swiss cheese, right, with a healthy side dish of confirmation bias. Frankly, you can take your pick. I think I covered every single possible bias in that story, but it doesn't matter. Because for a few minutes, we were talking about these people, well, not as who they were, because we don't know who they were, that's the point, but who they might have been. Because they existed. They were real. Right? People created this, and while we may not know what that reason was, they created it for a reason. And we cannot afford to forget that aspect of our humanity, right? So if you feel like you need to connect with history in that way also, the Voynich manuscript is a perfect gateway artifact. There's something in it for everybody, right? Maybe you just like a good mystery, or maybe you want to try and take a crack at the writing, or you want to examine the plants and the drawings, or maybe you prefer the physical aspects of it, like the parchment and the inks. Or maybe you're more like me and very well suited to just taking a more passive approach to reading about medieval and Renaissance history and what the actual experts are uncovering is actual evidence. And maybe it will turn out that it's not the Da Vinci Code, right? Maybe it was a 15th century episode of Roseanne. And maybe 600 years from now, historians will look back on my theory and they'll have some actual evidence to back it up. Now that would be funny. Thank you.